Hello everyone, today's video I'll be reviewing Poltergeist from 1982. Poltergeist is a supernatural ghost horror movie. It was directed by Tobe Hooper, who directed Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Funhouse. It was produced by Frank Marshall and Steven Spielberg, who also wrote and did the screenplay. The screenplay was written by Michael Gross and Mark Victor. The music was composed by Jerry Goldsmith, who did The Omen and First Blood. The movie stars Craig T. Nelson, JoBeth Williams, Patrice Strait, Dominic Dune, Oliver Robbins, Heather O'Rourke, and Zeldin Rubinstein. Poltergeist was released on June 4, 1982, making the 40th anniversary of this movie this year. The movie made $121.7 million at the box office. It was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. The plot to Poltergeist is about in California, strange things are happening in the Freeling family. When Carol Ann the youngest is kidnapped, trapped in another dimension by ghosts, the Freeling family call a parapsychologist and an exorcism for help to get their daughter back from the dimension she is trapped in. Despite Tobe Hooper being the one credited for directing this movie, people debate whether or not did Steven Spielberg direct this movie because he wrote the movie, created the idea, originally wanted to direct this movie, but was too busy committed to directing E.T. and could not direct both movies at the same time. Universal would not allow him to direct movies at once in his contract, and he was having contract issues with Universal at the time during the making of this movie. A lot of the actors said when making this movie, they went and asked Steven Spielberg for advice and direction more than Tobe Hooper. It's also been said how Tobe Hooper did not have any complete control over this movie. Also, Hooper followed Spielberg's direction advice for the camera shots instead of giving direction to the actors. Also, another reason why the debate is because Steven Spielberg was a bigger, higher profile film director than Tobe Hooper. It surprised me to this day they have not given credit that Steven Spielberg possibly co-directed this movie. What's also interesting, when Steven Spielberg could not direct this movie, he saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre and hired Hooper to direct Poltergeist. For me, in my own personal opinion, the way I see it, this movie has its moments of Spielberg melodrama moments where the scenes feel like a scene where Steven Spielberg directed the movie, and the horror and special effects ghost horror scenes feel like Tobe Hooper. Here are other examples. When Carol Ann's bird dies, the mother and daughter bonding, the average American middle-class family, father helping his son overcome fear of thunderstorms. These are moments that felt like Steven Spielberg directed these scenes. Again, here is another example of a Hooper moment. When the house is being haunted, the skeletons, the ghosts, when the guy rips his own skin off, the ghost tricking him, all feel like moments that were directed by Tobe Hooper. Even composer Jerry Goldsmith said when he composed the movie, he worked with Steven Spielberg, not Tobe Hooper, when he was composing the film. Both movies came out at the same time as E.T., but a week apart. And just like E.T., some Star Wars product placement and a movie poster of Alien in the background. Little Easter egg right there. This movie felt like the 80s version of The Haunting, but we see the ghosts. It has crazy awesome special effects that hold up pretty well today. Steven Spielberg said he was inspired from Robert Wise's research work he did on The Haunting back in the 60s. Steven Spielberg also said they based this movie on reading about the Herman family from 1958, who experienced weird, crazy paranormal activity events at their home on Seaford, Long Island. Poltergeist is based on a true story, but of course, this is fictional. You'd also point out one of the Conjuring films explore the real true story of Poltergeist. I read it once remembering watching Unsolved Mystery episodes showing the real true story behind Poltergeist. But for some unknown reasons, I've had a hard time finding this on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, or YouTube, and which season episode it was on, which one it was. This movie feels like watching a 1 hour 50-minute episode of The Twilight Zone, Little Girl Lost. In that episode, little girl gets stuck and lost in a dimension. Her family try to get her out and save her. Similar premise like this movie. The performances are great in this movie. JoBeth Williams, Craig T. Nelson do a great job playing average American middle-class family, mom and dad, husband and wife. And yet they smoke pot while their kids are sleeping, having bad dreams. They try to hide it when the kids come in, complaining about dreams they're having, that they're scared of. You feel bad and root for them throughout the entire movie, wanting them to save their little girl. They go through a lot after losing their daughter. They look like hell, like they have not slept or ate for days during this event, because they are so desperate wanting to get their little girl back. Heather O'Rourke, who is the real star and steals the show in this movie, is great. She has a moment when she's cute, adorable, but somehow she can communicate with the ghosts, and that she might have a gift of communicating to the supernatural. One of the best performances in a horror movie from a child actress. When her bird dies, she asks her mom, "Can I have a goldfish now?" Her famous line, "They're here." Before I saw this movie, I was familiar with the history, with that line seen in the late 2000s in a DirecTV commercial using that famous line, that scene. If you've never seen this movie, that's a famous horror line You've heard it somewhere from anyone who's referenced it or it's been parodied before. When she is kidnapped, the family called the paranormal activity investigators. This was 1982, pre-Ghostbusters. 2 years later, watch this today. People joke or can think of a parody. What are you gonna call? Ghostbusters to save Carol Ann. Despite mentioning earlier how cool the special effects are and hold up, it does, however, have its moments that hold up and don't hold up sometimes. When you look inside the little girl's room, you can tell that this could have been an early, CGI attempt before it was used a lot in today's modern film world. The ghost special effects are really cool and hold up, and the dead bodies that pop up in the pool hold up very well. CGI was around the 80s, but used only for small experiments to see how it would have looked before it became common and big in the 1990s and beyond for filmmaking. The movie touches upon what is on the other side of ghosts, how ghosts haunt houses are insulted when new people live in their old house, remodel the house, ghosts hate changes that are stuck in their past, spirits hate when their homes are changed, renovated, don't like other people living in their own old houses. The ending when Carol Ann is saved, the Freeling family moves, the cemeteries were removed, not the bodies, and now the neighborhood is haunted because of that. It shows what happened when messing with the supernatural and the dead is a bad thing. The part when Diane falls in the pool, those skeletons you see were actually real skeletons. Believe it or not, it was cheaper to buy real skeletons instead of making their own. The Poltergeist Curse. What Poltergeist review is not complete without talking about the Poltergeist Curse? I highly recommend you go check out the Shudder documentary Curse Movies. They have an episode dedicated to the Poltergeist Curse. This will be a simple, straightforward. There's a lot of videos on YouTube, video essay analysis on the Poltergeist Curse. Half the actors who were in these movies died after the movie's release. Dominic Dunn was one of the first actors to die after when Poltergeist was released. She was killed by her crazy, psychotic ex-boyfriend, former celebrity chef John Thomas Sweeney, who strangled her to death. If she did not die, she would have been the second Poltergeist movie. Instead, her character is only mentioned, not seen. This was her only movie she ever did. She mostly did made-for-TV movies and TV shows. We'll never know what kind of career she could have had if she had lived. Her last acting role she ever did before she died, she was on the crime drama TV show Hill Street Blues in the episode Requiem for a Hairbag. She plays a teenager who was a victim of abuse. If you look closely at her bruises, those bruises were not makeup. Those bruises were real because of her real-life boyfriend hit and abused her. Julian Beck from the second movie died from stomach cancer. Will Sampson, who you'll remember and recognize, who played the chief in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Jack Nicholson, died from scleroderma. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I'm not a medical doctor. In real life, he was a real shaman and performed an exorcism during the making of the second Poltergeist movie. It's true they say, don't mess with the supernatural. Heather O'Rourke died in 1988 from being misdiagnosed with Crohn's disease. She died while during the making of Poltergeist 3. Lou Perryman, who played one of the construction workers, was killed by Seth Christopher Tatum, who was an ex-con man who had a history of mental problems. Zella Rubinstein died in 2010 from a heart attack that she never recovered from. Luckily for her, the curse had nothing to do with her death. So far, some of the few remaining actors who are still alive from Poltergeist are JoBeth Williams, Craig T. Nelson, and the brother who outlived the longest, are lucky to still be alive and survive the curse. A lot of people have said that the skeletons is a possible reason why the movie is cursed, because they were real skeletons and not fake, that you don't mess with the dead. But there's not enough evidence to support this theory. I forgot to mention during the making of this movie that the clown animator really choked Robbie. When he felt that he could not get out of the clown's choke, they had to stop the filming process. I was never afraid of clowns like most kids, but I can see why kids grew up in the 80s were afraid of this scene. There were two sequels of Poltergeist and a remake in 2015. The second one is okay, it's nothing special. It had some okay moments and other moments a little confusing that was not explained well. Poltergeist was not sequel material. The third one sucked, just made for a quick buck. It's bad, but it's not the worst horror movie sequel. It loses the Spielberg and Hooper magic momentum. Because of production problems and the death of Heather O'Rourke affected the movie's performance, it was sad. The movie was never complete the way it was supposed to be, so they had to cut out scenes out that did not make the film. Spoiler right here, if you look at the end of the movie, you don't see her facing him when Nancy Ellen is holding her. It was a double because she was dead at that point during the making of the movie. Before she died, she had said that she was not feeling well, could not understand why before it was too late. If you look closer, you can tell that she was not right. She looked a little pudgy and gained a little weight. After that, there were no more sequel follow-ups. There was supposed to be a fourth movie, but because of the death of Heather O'Rourke, they canceled that movie. Before Heather O'Rourke died, she said in an interview that she was getting tired of the Poltergeist movies and was hoping the fourth one would be the last one, or the third one, depending on the box office results performances. In 2015, there was a remake, which I've never seen. I am not really that interested or desperate to check out at some point. As a little joke right here, for all we know that the Poltergeist remake could be cursed. Hence, don't remake classics, otherwise you'll be cursed. I'm just kidding. I'm joking. At some point in the near future, I'll review the rest of the series, but I'm not really that desperate to review the rest of the series. Before I end it right here, I have Poltergeist on this triple DVD collection with all three original Poltergeist films, except for the remake, thankfully. Because the first one before, you can only get it like in an individual. It wasn't in the whole set because the first Poltergeist film was made by Universal, and the sequels were made by MGM. I'm not sure like why like Spielberg or Universal like sold the rights to MGM for the rest of the Poltergeist series. So that was my review of Poltergeist. Like the video, subscribe, the notification bell to get the latest updates on my YouTube channel, and stay tuned for tomorrow for another horror movie review for October.